Good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Gugulethu Cele. Now today I'm joined in studio by Lourens Oberholzer, who is the MD and founder of Retire Rich and Happy. Now he's here to answer the question why most retirement plans don't work and how best we as those who are planning for our retirement can do about this and how to navigate the landscape. Lourens, always good to speak to you and thanks so much for coming through.
Gugu. Thanks for having me again.
Perfect. Let's talk about this whole concept regarding retirement plans which don't work. My mother's a few years away from retirement. She's a bit nervous now given where all the market dynamics are.
Yes.
But where do we go wrong? Is it product selection? Is it not right for our targets and our goals and objectives?
I think everything starts with what we've been taught about retirement from when we were very small. The lessons we were taught was go to school, get good grades, get a good job, get on a pension fund, save as much as possible for retirement and don't make unnecessary debt. So that was sort of the recipe that they taught us to say that's how you're going to be able to retire. But if we look at the statistics of people retiring currently, 94% of people retiring in South Africa can't look after themselves financially. 63% still has debt left when they retire.
Sure.
More than 50% of people have to look at maybe doing other jobs or getting extra income from somewhere. So that recipe is not working. And the reason for that is that we've been focused or been taught to do savings. That's all they taught us, is save money, save money. Now, we're not saying to people, don't save. You have to save, but you have to understand that savings alone is not the answer. There's other things that you have to do as well. Just to give you an example, when you look at how much capital you would need to convert that capital into enough income, we talk about the rule of 300. So if you want 100 rands worth of income, you need 300 times that 100 rand in capital to get that income. So for example, if you would need 1,000 rand a month income, you would need 300,000 rands worth of capital. Now if you look at that picture, now it's not an exact figure, but it gives you a very good estimate. Now if you look at that, if you need an income of 10,000 rand a month, you would need 3 million rand in capital today to give you 10,000 rand a month. To save that, if you only have 10 years left to retirement, if you want to save that up with inflation at about 6%, you would need about 5.3 million rand by the time you get to retirement. That's 10 years. Yeah, it's crazy to get the same value as 10,000 today. So if you haven't saved at all and you wanted to save that amount up from now in 10 years, you would have to save 19,000 rand a month.
And with what money? What am I going to live on?
Exactly. And that 19,000 you would have to increase with inflation every year. If you go a little bit further and you say, but I don't only have 10 years left, I have 20 years left. If you look at a 20-year term, the same 10,000 rand a month income that you would need about 11 million in capital. And you would have to save about 7,000 rand a month to get to it. So the point is that savings alone is not going to be enough. You have to do other things.
So talk to us about this, because so often we hear about the theme of starting when you're early, your first paycheck, which I didn't do. Admittedly, I started a little bit later at the age of 25. But even that, according to some people, isn't sufficient. So how do we need to navigate this landscape?
What I say is the first thing you need to look at is the way they look at preparing for retirement. What we tend to do is we tend to focus on how much capital can we build up by saving so that we can, at that point of retirement, take over our income or replace our income at that point, instead of looking at it from a passive income point of view. Because if you look at retirement is actually passive income. You need to, at some point in time, stop working and you need income streams coming in to replace the income that you earned while working.
Yeah.
So, and that's all passive income. Now, just to define passive income. Passive income is any income that you can generate for yourself without you having to do the work yourself. So it's income that comes into your life without you working, or whether you work or not. That's passive income. So what we're teaching people is that you need to start focusing on how much of your income have you replaced yet, instead of looking at how much capital have you saved up. So you need to sit down and say, at this point in life, I have X amount of capital available. If I convert that into an income now, how much of my income have I replaced?
How do you do that?
Well, you can use the rule of 300 again if you want to make it very simple. You can go through very big calculations, but very simple. If you use the rule of 300, if you have 300,000 rands worth of capital, you've replaced 1,000 rand a month of your income, because that's what that 300,000 will give you.
But for the average viewer who's listening and watching here, Lourens, they're probably going to think, okay, so how do I choose the right product? Or does it mean I need to invest in something which does things differently in order to turn that capital into income? But how do we choose them when there's so many products available on the market?
Yeah. So what we teach people is, firstly, is make sure that you understand where you are practically by looking at how much of your income you've replaced instead of just looking at capital. Secondly, then do a strategic expense planning exercise. What we talk about strategic expense planning is really look at your budget. Don't just go into your budget and look at the big stuff, because usually what happens is most people don't have a budget. And those who do have a budget for the big things. Their rent, their car payments, all of those things.
But that coffee on your way to work?
That's it. It's the small things that eat up people's budgets. Now, as we sit with clients, we see that most people overspend about 10% on their expenses. So you could very easily, by really looking at your expenses, cut that down by about 10%.
Sure.
Then do that, get that 10% less expense, and use that to pay off your debt, your bad debt. And that's a discussion we can have at another time. There's strategies on how do you build momentum to get out of those small debts, so that you can use that money and invest for retirement. But that's still not going to be enough. If you look at those figures I told you a little bit earlier, 19,000 rand a month, it's still not going to be enough. So what we then teach people is to find another way of generating an extra income stream, and usually through a transformational business. Something that you can do over and above your job that will generate an extra income for you. Usually looking at something that's not directly linked to what you do every day. Things like, for example, to give you a few examples, a network marketing kind of business that will generate extra income for you, but you make use of leverage. You could do something like a vending machine that will generate an income whether you work at the vending machine or not.
So it doesn't necessarily need my time or my presence for that job to actually take place.
So then you start building those kind of extra income. But then that income is your freedom income. It's not your lifestyle income. So you shouldn't take that income and go and buy a better car or go and go on holiday. That income, the point there is to take that income and make it work for you. So then we teach people to take that and put it into short-term capital assets. So you put it into some kind of a short-term investment to have the money somewhere, so that you can take that money and convert it into income-generating assets. And the best asset there, or one of the best, is property. To then go and invest that money that you've created over and above your normal income and put that into property. Okay.
Then you get the rental income there, which will obviously boost, like you say, the income that you'll have in the future for your retirement savings.
So then when you sit down and do that exercise of saying, instead of just looking at how much capital must I save, you look at how much of my income have I replaced. So then you can say, well, I've got X amount of capital in the bank, that will replace that much of my income. But I have income coming from a property which will replace X amount of my income. So you can then start building towards replacing your income over time instead of just looking at the end result. Because what happens is they tell us that what you do is what you earn, and what you do is linked with one another. And this is how they teach us. And this you keep going for 40 years. At the end of 40 years, one day, boop, these two will just disconnect. But it doesn't work that way. So what we want to teach people is that this should happen slowly over time and not be a once-off event. Because people plan for that once-off event, that day when they retire. But then they get there and there's not enough capital. Saying use other things as well, so that you slowly disconnect what you do and what you earn from one another. And then generate that passive income to be able to retire.
For someone though who might be listening to this, Lourens, and might be a little bit worried because they have less than 10 years to efficiently prepare for their retirement.
Yeah.
Are there options available for them?
The best thing is you have to save as much as you can. Again, we're not telling people don't save. We're telling know what the limitations of savings are. So sit down, do an expense planning and make sure you save as much as you can. But know that that's not enough. Then get in line and get something that will generate extra income and use that income as best possible to generate assets. You have to generate assets, otherwise you're never going to get there.
Exactly.
People also think that they will retire at 55, 60. You'll have to move that retirement up. People are living longer and longer, and you need more and more assets to get there. The big thing about the strategy of not just looking at capital assets to retire is also that the other kinds of assets, business assets, fixed assets, they create generational wealth. Capital assets usually just create wealth for you.
Yes.
So you have the capital, you invested in an annuity, they give you income until you pass away, and then the money's gone. If you have property, if you have a business asset that will generate income whether you work it or not, that can be left to your children, to the next generation. And instead of starting with 0, they can start with 20% or 30%, which gives them a kickstart in life.
It makes such a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Lourens, we've said quite a bit, and I like the way you think, but for those who might be watching and missed out on the first half of our conversation, let's get a quick recap now on the key takeaways from tonight's discussion. Lourens, for the viewer out there who might be watching, anyone from 25 to 55, what do they need to bear in mind?
Okay. The first thing they need to bear in mind is that savings isn't the solution. Savings is only part of the solution.
So that 15%, if you're matching that target, good on you, but do a little bit more.
Yes, you have to do more. That's not going to be enough. So as I explain it to people, if you want to build a brick wall, and the brick wall is your retirement, saving is only a few of the bricks that you use to build the wall. It's not the wall. So you have to take other bricks and build that wall. And you have to look at it practically. Don't just look at these massive figures, because that's the problem with retirement. People look at it and they look at 20 million and 15 million, and it just becomes so much that they can't think in that manner. You have to look at it in practical. How much of my income have I replaced up to this point, and how far do I have to go? And keep track of that every 6 months, every year, to see where you are.
Exactly. Lourens, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your insights with us with regard to retirement and making it work for you despite the pressures that we face. But that's where we have to leave it this evening for Personal Finance. A big thank you once more to Lourens Oberholzer, who is the MD and founder of Retire Rich and Happy. Well, you can also share your feedback with us and your thoughts on retiring rich and happy, and tell us how far you are on that particular plan. Tweet your comments to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or to myself @Gugulethu. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.